2023, and it is 3:37 p.m. Before we get into business, I want to introduce what our newest member, Judge Cynthia Wheelis out of Collin County. Welcome. All right, okay, on to item 2, discussion, consideration, and possible approval regarding excused absences. I think, Melissa, you were absent last, no, you weren't absent at the committee meeting, but.
Correct.
Okay, so I was the only absent person, I believe. Somebody please give me a break here.
So moved.
Oh, shit.
Thank you all. All right, we have a second?
Second.
Second, all right, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Item number 3, discussion, consideration, and possible approval regarding the December 8th, 2022 meeting minutes. Everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes?
I'm going to make a motion to approve those minutes.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman.
Jimmy.
Second.
Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, item number 4, discussion, consideration, and possible approval regarding a new contract for Schaefer Halfway House, BKI Investments. Increase, we'll just do one at a time. And Jeanette?
Good afternoon. I'm Jeanette Bravo. I'm the contracts team lead over the contracts department here at TJJD.
If you don't mind, we'll just go through them one at a time.
Okay. So we have a new lease for the Schaefer House, Schaefer Halfway House. And this is for a 5-year base term with 3 5-year renewal options. The total value estimate is $5,019,410. It is, of course, to house the youth there. Is there any questions about that one?
Give me a second.
Okay.
Is there an exit? What's the exit clause? What does it consist of?
I would have to get back with y'all.
Okay. How many years have we been contracting with this property?
It's a good number of years. It's either 20, it's kind of close to 20 years or so. It's kind of running the same. We did it for the same or close to it.
I'd like to hear from Sean or Chandra on this, just a little bit more information about the halfway house and how many people we have there and the location, and just give us a little bit of.
It's our location in El Paso, and it serves a lot of our sex offenders, as other locations have difficulties because they're, close to schools or whatever may be. I will be telling you more tomorrow about, we did choose to close our Willoughby halfway house. So we were just constantly assessing what's appropriate. I think it might be helpful if we sent to the board the halfway houses that are open, how long we've had these leases. I know we've had a lease for 20 years on one of the locations. And frankly, for some of the money that we're paying in rent, we could have bought these places. And that's really where we're assessing sort of how we make these decisions. So I can get you the information that you need. I know that we have the availability to get out if we absolutely need to before a lease would end for, and that's this, we've done this before because we just have not had a population to justify keeping a house open and have been able to get out of them.
I'd like to table this particular contract till tomorrow.
Sure.
And let's have a little.
Yeah, we'll get you more information.
What's be interesting is to have information about, are we paying for all the
The maintenance,
maintenance, everything,
so they're different.
that leases?
Yeah, they're all a little different. And so like, for example, Willoughby's rent was gonna go, I think, from 8,000 to 15 to 20,000, and then they would take care of the maintenance, but the maintenance was astounding. So they are a little different, but we'll get you all that information.
All right with the board? We table it. Is that the way we do this? Or do I need a motion and second as a committee?
I think you should get a motion and second to table.
All right, well, I'm gonna make the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All in favor of tabling until we get enough information?
Aye.
Thank you.
But you want to take it up tomorrow?
I do want to take it up tomorrow with more
I
information.
think you might then want to, I'm sorry, you might want to vote to just hear it tomorrow without vote it out of committee with no recommendation whatsoever,
Okay.
so that it comes up
Very
tomorrow.
good. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Casey. So I will amend my motion to just move it out of committee with no recommendation.
You mean the second?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so on to the next contract is a not to exceed contract for Consolidated Telecom Incorporated. And this is
Yes.
for youth phone services.
It's an extension of the existing contract for the youth phone services to allow time for the new vendor contract and for them to install the new phone system. This is an increased current contract by $280,000. So the new not to exceed value will be $4,630,646.
4 million.
That's the total
Total life.
life of the contract.
Anyone have any questions?
For how long is the line?
We've had this contract, I think for quite, I don't have the number of years in front of me, I'm sorry.
So annually, we spend about $300,000 on our youth phone services annually. So the contract is over many, many years, the total contract amount.
Seems like a lot of money for a phone contract. Is this throughout the system?
So this is, so the state provides minutes for our youth to be able to call home, right? And so, so we provide the youth, approximately 50 minutes a month for them to have contact with their families or their approved contacts list. And so that's what this contract is to, for us to have phones in the dorms so that they can communicate with their families.
So these are landlines?
Yes. Are there any other questions or thoughts about it? We know, I mean, is there a reason why we're extending it for so long? Does it give us a certain value by doing that?
So we actually put this contract out to bid previously, and that's already, that contract, the new vendor has already been awarded. However, it's gonna be a changing of all of the systems, like the phones, like they're gonna come in and pull out the old phones, put new phone systems in. And so in order to allow the new vendor time to do that before they start their operations, we're gonna have to extend the current contract with our current vendor, just during the transition
I
time.
understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Judge. We have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Smith. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. All right, motion carries unanimous. Thank you. The next one is an increase not to exceed amount of PPI staffing contract.
Yes, this is the contract, is for the supplemental staffing at the secure facilities. It's an increase of the not to exceed amount by $1 million. Therefore, the new not to exceed value of the contract is $5 million. This is to, I guess with the improving recruiting and retention of the TJJD staff, my understanding is Giddings is the last facility using this PPI personnel. And that's being evaluated monthly, whether they continue to require the support, and we'll discontinue it as soon as, I guess they get their staff.
Get full-time staffing at appropriate levels. Is there anything else that the board should know about this particular contract or who we're contracting?
Really expensive. Excited that our staffing levels have narrowed it down this far and we are motivated to be done with it, yes.
Okay. And if we were miraculously to get to full staffing, we're not obliged to continue to pay. That's when it stops.
Correct.
All right. Any other questions, thoughts on this contract? Entertain a motion to approve. Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Jimmy. All right. Motion and second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Raise the hand. Okay. Thank you. All right. Appreciate you. Is that all the business for you?
That's all.
Thank you. Okay, on to item number 5, discussion, consideration, possible approval regarding exceeding transfer limitations.
It's okay. I am Emily Anderson, Deputy Executive Director for Support Operations and Finance. I am bringing you a request to allow the Executive Director to submit a letter to the office, the Lieutenant Governor's office and the Legislative Budget Board to exceed transfer limitations in accordance with the General Appropriations Act. Every agency is allowed to transfer out 20% of line item budgets from the appropriations bill. And in order to exceed that, we have to have a motion from our board. We have to have a statement justifying the need to exceed the source of funds that are going to be transferred, and an explanation as to why this transfer cannot be deferred. And so we are asking to exceed transfer limitations for 2 strategies, our B15 halfway house operations strategy and our B19 contracted residential placement strategies. Both of these strategies are formula funded based on a cost per day, like a cost per day by the population numbers. And year to date, our appropriated population versus our actual population, we're about 127 youth average daily population below what we were appropriated. And therefore, we're asking to transfer the funds that would have been to support those youth, transfer out of those strategies to continue to support things like the contracted services that we just heard, the PPI contracted services, the upgrades to the support, IT support for the launch of our new case management system, Connect, contracts for sentence offender evaluations, and then the contract detention reimbursements for counties, as well as support additional regionalization diversion efforts. So
Just stop you there, Emily. So
yes.
regarding the reimbursement to detention centers.
Yes.
And we heard some talk about that at Senate Finance earlier. That's roughly $12 million.
The supplemental is 12 million. This is a little different.
Yeah, so this is for the we're providing for the smaller counties reimbursement for contract detention, and that was just the smaller counties. We said we're setting aside a pot of money for that until we can see if we get the supplemental approved or not. Deferring these transfers will detrimentally impact the agency's ability to continue to support the things that I mentioned. And so really there's a resolution asking for board approval for the executive director to send a letter to the lieutenant governor and the legislative budget board asking to exceed the transfer limitations.
Do you all know if we've done this in the past years?
To my knowledge, since I have been at the agency, I don't believe that we've requested to exceed line item budgets. We have requested to exceed capital budget transfers, but never operational line items.
If we approve this, will this be something that we ratify at each board meeting, the funds that we exceed that amount? Or
So no, I think it would be just a blanket approval. We'll send the letter and see if we get the approval from Lieutenant Governor and the LBB. but I can certainly bring as a report to the Finance and Audit Committee how much we are exceeding transfer limitations.
I'll just be frank. My concern was that the Sunset Commission had a finding that we weren't as engaged as we needed to be as far as what was, happening here. And I don't in any way want that to continue to be the belief on behalf of our board. So can we just talk about that a little bit? I mean, is this something that have we considered that in this process?
Yeah, we are happy to provide whatever updates are helpful to you all. And piece out whatever information you want, we will happily give it. So that's not an issue at all.
Yeah. I can tell you my projections right now for both of the strategies. For the halfway house strategy, I'm projecting to exceed transfer limitations by about $600,000. For the contract residential placements, right now it's about $350,000. But as the year progresses, right, those could change and certainly provide you with the information as we make the transfers, or before we make the transfers. We can actually bring it to you also.
Any other thoughts or questions?
Mr. Chairman, I understand what you're saying, and but I think it needs to apply for a whole lot of things as y'all go on, because this is where we got burned, not knowing when changes were made or they weren't we've never seen any changes in what we approved or disapprove or, whatever, and it, once it gets out there, it just seems to go into a place.
We can talk about that. I would just like to have updates on things as we go along, so we know where money is being expended.
And we can certainly just do that with your finance committee members as a regular in-between meetings group.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, questions? Okay. I would like to be the one to put forward the motion on this one. So do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the next agenda item we've discussed.
Yes.
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 We'll go on to item number 6, discussion regarding information technology needs and procurement of required services.
Sure. So I will first start off with just trying to provide y'all with an update on our information technology division and some of the struggles that we're having within that division, and then a recommendation that Nate has developed on how we can possibly address some of those things. So just off the bat, the IT division manages over 120 standalone applications and thousands of devices, including phones, tablets, radios, body-worn cameras, and laptops, as well as being responsible for implementation and continued monitoring of cybersecurity requirements dictated by state and federal mandates. In addition to supporting the applications and devices, the IT division is also responsible for implementing multiple capital projects across all of our campuses. And some of those examples of those are like our body-worn camera refresh, a radio refresh, our RFID bed check system, our fixed camera project system, and our visitor tracking system. The past several years, with the onset of COVID, our IT team had to quickly pivot and focus on providing telework capabilities and assume significant responsibilities related to the move of the data center and of our central office space to alternate locations. Currently, our IT division is operating at 66% staffing strength. As you know, the environment of information technology is one that changes and evolves daily, and simply TJJD has not been able to keep up with the evolution of information technology. Currently, we're able to operate almost completely in a state of reactive crisis management state. All of these things are placing significant risk on our agency, as well as impeding our ability to operate efficiently and securely. Some of the risks include staff not being able to receive information or assistance during emergencies, systems being held for ransom by hackers, accessibility of sensitive staff and youth information, youth having access to inappropriate material or content or unauthorized contact with the outside, and also possibly the delaying of movement of youth through the system. The agency, we believe, must focus on developing strategic solutions within our mission space, and that necessarily focus has not been allowed us to focus on developing strategic solutions for IT. We are proposing to initiate a contract to provide the agency with support in developing short and long-term solutions and strategic planning for our information technologies. And also, this contract would provide recommendations on recruitment and retention efforts, as well as provide all levels of our IT staff with direct support for their operational areas and relevant modern training and continuing educational opportunities for our staff. So that's the proposed solution that we're bringing out, that we enter into a contract with a vendor to help us really plan short-term and long-term solutions to meet our changing information technology needs. And I will stop talking if Nate has anything to add to that.
One of the vendors we're looking to partner with, they are a proven vendor in their space, providing advisory and research and technical, more in tactical type support. I've come to learn that even our most affluent agencies, such as TxDOT, DPS, and some of our other agents, DIR, are ones who have procured these services, and they have abundance of resources. So their IT teams are probably triple the size of mine, but yet they're still finding the need to have this strategic support. And I think this is going to be one opportunity for us to become more strategic and to fill some of the gaps. It's not going to be the only solution to this, but I think this is going to be a solution that's going to put us in the right place, so where we can get out of the reactive mode that we are in now. We can bring in the resources that we need, because again, as Emily said, I'm operating at 66%, and I'm filling in some of those gaps with some staff augmentation type of support, but that's not sustainable, right? We need employees in here. We need the right employees, especially with the change that we have made and the changes that we're continuing to make in terms of our infrastructure and how we are working right now, especially from a virtual perspective. We're moving away from, managing a lot of things ourselves to having it more managed for us, so that way we can dedicate that time to the business and focusing on the strategic needs of the business rather than us tinkering with an actual device.
So we're happy to answer any questions. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. So it sounds like a great idea, but just I wanted to, in my head, a little bit understand. So this would be to get the brain knowledge
Yes.
of how to do, but also some hands-on workers as well.
So this would not be for hands-on workers. This would be hands-on from a support perspective. So they would not be coming in and actually putting hands on, but they would be resources to my staff, to where if they had a specific need in terms of how to optimize a certain system, they can basically phone a friend, a very highly capable and experienced friend, to talk them through how that optimization should happen. What are the best practices? What are the guides? They will provide guides and documentation on how it's best done, so that way we can implement more effectively.
So, but you're 66% at capacity, then who's going to be doing all the great ideas they tell you to do?
Right. So they'll also help us with the building out our value proposition, helping us with our staffing. I mean, the staffing is our challenge around that is around money. And we've already been working with executive leadership on finding ways to get us additional funds, because we just can't, our challenge is we can't compete for staffing. That is, but we have to, we're hemorrhaging in terms of the work that we're doing now. So this will enable us to stop some of that bleeding right now and point us in a direction so that as we add more staff, that we will be better positioned to move forward.
So
Just for context, IT is not the only one that's been at 66% capacity across the
Right.
agency, and we're not asking for contracts for everybody. But unlike my low VCO strength, and I can put in case managers, teachers, assistant superintendents, myself, right? This is one area of the agency that nobody speaks the language but IT. There's no in-house support that we can provide to sort of fill the gap because it's so highly specialized.
Absolutely.
So I do anticipate with this contract, though, some real clear efficiencies determined and how to use what we have right now in the most efficient way possible. And then how do we maybe move things around to get what we need?
Yeah, and that helps tremendously. My mind went back to the other contract, the PPI. It's like,
Yes.
oh, shoot, if we could get hands-on help too, how wonderful would this be?
So no, this wouldn't, but it really would help us determine, like where we need to go, how to get there, and what resources we need to get there, right? So while we are short-staffed, maybe we don't have the right positions allocated for where we need to go, and so they'll help us identify them too as we move forward.
Issues for our agency all along have been protection of our data, right? I mean, that's been a problem because our systems are outdated.
Yes.
Efficiencies, it will create efficiencies.
And for that reason, we can't outsource all of your needs.
There isn't enough money for that. I mean, so in theory, yes. I mean, there are, even the private sector does that, right? They outsource those needs, but that comes at a much higher cost to outsource that than what we're probably asking for in this contract.
So, Emily, when you look at the size of other agencies who are utilizing the same service, I know ours is going to be probably a smaller footprint, but is it equitable as far as the cost? Do you have any idea what other agencies are paying and what they're being provided, and are they happy with the service?
So I'll answer, there's two questions here, so I'll answer both. In terms of the equity, they will be, because they're bigger, they're getting more per scale because it's a subscription type service. So as they have more people that they need to provide, obviously their costs are going to go up. So I would say, but it is based on a DIR contract. So the rates are pretty fixed. So we're paying the same rate that all the other agencies are, but obviously they're paying because they're paying for scale. Paying more because of scale. And then the second piece of your question escaped me just that quick.
I've already forgotten. It's been a long day.
If they're satisfied, I'm not sure.
Oh, yes, so the satisfaction, absolutely. So I had an opportunity to speak to some of my CIO colleagues at a conference that have these services, and they couldn't be more happy. I had spoke with the CIO at HHSC, and I also spoke with the CIO from DPS. And they couldn't have spoken more highly of the services that they're getting, and speaking to the strategic positioning that these services has put them and enabled them to articulate and justify some of the needs when they go in front of the legislature, because their asks to the legislature are much, much bigger from an IT perspective than ours are, because we're not, our systems aren't serving the general public like theirs are. But it has put them in a position to where they can fully justify and back that up when they're testifying to the legislature.
Hey, in the new office space, is it gonna have the same old equipment coming in, or are we doing new equipment?
So we are looking at new equipment across the board. We are evaluating what it's going to take because, well, first, in the past, we've been piecemealing our technology refresh. And we've recognized, the leadership here, we've recognized that piecemeal approach is just not going to work. We'll never be able to catch up. So we're looking at what the investment will take to do a full refresh of everything, and we can start from that point to continue to build from there. And so that's part of what we're evaluating and using potential savings that we've obtained over this past year to try to close that gap in our technology refresh.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, questions? All right, entertain a motion to approve.
I don't think this is not an action item.
Oh,
We
it's
just
not.
wanted to bring this up to the committee, to let you
And
know,
you'll come back.
we will be coming back with a contract in a future meeting.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, item number 7, discussion, consideration, and possible approval regarding the Legislative Reporting Division use of TEA student data audit draft report 23-8. Zara, how are you today?
Doing good. Good afternoon, and you did a much better job saying the title than I will, that's for sure. Great to see y'all again. Just get back to it. I was trying to get on the Wi-Fi and my laptop is not working very well, so.
A refresh would help.
So for the record, I'm the Chief Auditor, Elizar Garcia. Before I get started on the audit report, I do want to thank Jocelyn Lewis for her assistance throughout the audit. She does a great job with our staff, and we appreciate that. The report on the Legislative Reporting Division's use of TEA student data may be found on page 66 of the board materials. The objective is to determine if the agency complies with the agreement maintained between TJJD and the Texas Education Agency. This is an annual audit required by the agreement itself. The scope includes review of access, transfer, storage, protection, and subsequent destruction of the confidential student data, as well as follow up on any prior reported findings from the prior year. This is our third time to do this audit. So we've done pretty good work on it, I think, to get everything where we need it to be. As required by the agreement, results of the review will be reported to TEA. We reported some of the following findings related to information security. While access is currently appropriate for access to student data, implementation of the plan to perform periodic access reviews can help ensure access to the data is protected. Confidential student data is properly transferred, stored, and protected by the Legislative Reporting Division. Documentation is provided to TEA in accordance with the agreement. Due to the nature and sensitivity of the findings, full details are not included in the report, nor are the recommendations in accordance with Texas Government Code, sections 2059, 055, and 552, 139. Management concurs with the results of the work and responses to the recommendations are captured within our internal audit confidential working papers. This concludes my presentation.
Any questions about this? All right, entertain a motion to approve. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, on to item number 8, discussion regarding internal audit follow-up report 24.2.
The internal audit follow-up report starts on page 221. The standards require we review the disposition of audit findings and ensure management action plans are effectively implemented. This report includes review of 29 recommendations reported by management as implemented. It includes 14 internal audits and 4 external audits from the state auditor's office. Moving through the report, the chart on page 224 reflects the results for the 29 recommendations reviewed, along with their audit title and classified by whether they were internal or external audits. Approximately 42% of the 21 internal audit recommendations were close verified as a result of the verification tests. You will also note that 12 or 57% were returned to underway or in progress as a result of the verification testing did not support full implementation. And
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Explain that to me.
Okay, so we do verification tests on these items to make sure they're implemented. Management first tells us that these items are implemented. So we go in, test, do our work, and because of that, we determined 57% were not fully implemented. There might need a little bit of action, possibly just updating the policy, possibly just making sure that something is implemented, or they could do quite a bit. We can send it back because there's quite a bit that hasn't been. We have to make sure that the control is in place and it's operating as intended to fulfill the objective. There's different reasons why we may return it, but again, it's not fully implemented from our standpoint. So we discuss with management, make sure that they understand why we are returning it back. We have quite a bit of discussions. We also now are starting to work with Cameron Taylor here and Aaron Mills, just to make sure that they can hopefully carry this message back to our parties that we're reviewing, and hopefully make sure that it is implemented and it's to that extent. It's
Do you
just,
have priorities, like if it's related to youth safety or staff safety, those kinds of things, you prioritize those? And
that's what we're going to start doing. That's a good recommendation. That's something we want to do just to make sure, because management, from executive management, they should know what's more a priority, which one of these that are still outstanding is a bigger priority over these others. So that's something we're starting to develop. It's kind of in line with the state auditor's office does. So it would be, we have a good template and hope to implement it by the next one. With some of these findings that we're seeing and some of the actions and just working with management in itself and the assistance that we received from Sean and Cameron and Aaron, now that we're working more closely with them, we just, our intent is to kind of do this same follow-up report for audit by August, hopefully. Because we see a lot of good things happening and we want to make sure we can take advantage of that from that end, and hopefully just provide another quick snapshot as to where we are and are things happening the way they need to. It's a lot of work. Follow-up takes up a lot of our time. I will be honest, it does take quite a bit of time because we spend a lot of time on them, and then when we work with management and try to get them to where we need to understand, okay, this is why it's not implemented, and our thoughts and the discussions that are had. It's quite a bit of work that we do in this area. It's something that you can see the time that we spend on it continues to increase. So, just that one thing. But I think with the process that we have in place right now, we hopefully can see some improvement in that area. And the other thing too that happens is sometimes management changes. So in the process of getting that implemented to where we need it to be, the director, the manager, whomever may leave, and now we're back to square one and getting that new person to kind of see, okay, this is what we still need to do. And there's just a lot that goes into it, but it's a good question.
do y'all do risk-based monitoring? Like if it's something that you see a pattern of, that you go back to that frequently to make sure that it's implemented, that
Yes, sir.
it's become part of culture.
Right. And that's something we try to do with every audit we do is risk-based. That's our whole audit plan is based on a risk-based. We do have our mandatory audits that we have to do because there's a state code that requires us to do that audit. As I'll mention later, we're doing the abuse, neglect, exploitation audit. There's a state code that requires us to do it. Now, but everything, even when we're in the audit, it's still risk-based. We still go in and try to do a risk-based analysis, risk assessment to try to determine what are the areas that we need to focus on. It's not that there's something wrong. It's not that there's a weakness, but it's just, this is a high risk for this agency. How do we address it? Just in working with Chandra and Sean, our discussions, we had one yesterday, just kind of making sure that we're attacking the right risk. And when we meet with the board, same thing when we present the audit plan. it's, there's quite a bit there that I think, the SAO, just kind of looking at back at the SAO, and I know, my deputy director, Stephanie, you know, she's kind of real interested in trying to make sure that we set up this risk base for our follow-up process so that we can give management more attention and they focus on the ones that are the high risk. One, you know, a little bit later in this, that you'll see one of the charts, you know, one of our biggest, longest lasting, action that we need to get implemented relates to the COOP, you know, and making sure our agency is set up for disaster recovery and things like that. And of course, nobody could be ready for what happened with the pandemic, but again, it's just things like that we've been trying to address since at least 2013 or so, and we're still not there, you know, so. But yeah, that's a good, you know, thought to make sure that we risk-based our follow-up process as well. So that when we get with Cameron and Aaron and Sean, I don't know, we meet with them quite a bit. You know, they meet with Stephanie. Stephanie's very involved in that area. Does a great job.
I didn't mean to get you off track.
No, it's good. No, I appreciate the questions. But I hope I answered it.
You did.
Yeah.
You did. Very good.
I will add, Chairman, we recognize that part of this responsibility is, like, Elazar can't be the one expecting to get all these audits and asking people. And so in doing exactly what you just said and prioritizing based on risk, and aligned, like, because what I suggested is you give them to me and I will rank them just 1, 2, 3 based on what I think is risk, and then you tell me what I'm missing. And then those highest risk ones are my responsibility to shepherd and ensure they're getting done.
Thank you. We don't need action on.
No, sir. Yeah, just one of the other items I want to make sure. If you'll look at the chart on page 226. I mean, I think this is important. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. There's 8 recommendations that are beyond 5 years in implementation. So just, you know, those are the ones we're trying to make work right now and address. And then, of course, as you mentioned, the risk-based, what is important between these, and some of them require, there's different reasons as to why they're not implemented. Each one, it varies. But, you know, just want to, you know, just in working with Sean Grove and Cameron and now Aaron Mills, you know, hopefully this process will improve so that we don't have these that are so old in implementation. You know, that's our
There's a lot
goal.
of mitigating factors to a lot of these things, but 5 years seems like a long time.
Yes, sir.
And that, I don't think that's acceptable.
Right.
I don't know about the rest of the board, but for me, it wouldn't be in my county, so.
Right. And that's something we're trying to address very, you know, but again, it does take a lot of our process in conducting audits, being available for the audits we want to do versus the audits of just following up. But thank you.
Thank you.
Then, of course, on page 228, you have the 15 recommendations that we are going to close as a result of this follow-up work that we did. That concludes my presentation. You have to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions on this report? All right. Thank you, Elazar. We'll go on to item number 9, discussion regarding the internal audit status report 23-3.
Yes, this is just a quarterly status report as to where we are. Was our audit plan and just to kind of give you some information on other things we're doing. Section 1 identifies the completed projects to date for this fiscal year. Section 2 reflects the audits that we are currently conducting. Some of them are, as I mentioned, they're mandatory audits because of a state code or so. And of course, the audit I just presented, it's required because of an agreement between TDA and TJJD. But then the other thing I want to bring to your attention is that I and the deputy director will be conducting a peer review or, you know, quality assurance review of the internal audit department for Texas Department of Family Protective Services. So that's something that all the agencies, state agencies, and internal audits departments for the state agencies conduct on a reciprocal type basis where we do an audit of theirs to make sure that they're doing what they're following the standards, complying with the standards. We had ours done last year. And I reported on it in the June 2022 audit.
Remind me who did ours?
I'm sorry?
Who did ours last time?
DPS.
DPS.
DPS and Attorney General's office. So it was a combination of two different agencies that came in and looked at the work that my internal audit shop does. And luckily, we were doing everything we're required to do. They had some good recommendations that we are in the process of implementing. But again, it's a good process to make sure every internal audit department follows the expectations. But I want to bring that to your attention. And then on the bottom of page 234, it kind of reflects the status of the performance measures that we agreed to try to meet. You know, right now we're still early in the fiscal year, so we're not there for 3 of the 4. But hopefully by year end we should be there. But we are meeting one. But again, those are things that hopefully by fiscal year end we can be closer or be meeting them. And that concludes my presentation on the status report. Unless you guys have any questions.
I just like to make a comment.
Sir.
I just am grateful for the work that you do. You're a lot like SPU. I mean, you help to keep us tight and make sure that we limit liability and appreciate the work you and your staff for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a great staff and I love the work I do. I love working with TJJD and just enjoy it. It's been great. Thank you. Welcome to y'all as well.
Okay. Thank you, Elazar.
Thank you.
The next is public comment, and we don't have any. I would like to make a public comment. I want to thank Jimmy Smith for being here today and for serving for the last 10 years. I wasn't here last board meeting when you were recognized, and you've done so much for the agency, especially with regard to managing the trust and just you've always had just this real common sense approach to things. You're very logical. You're an awesome businessman, and I'm going to hate to see you go because I've spent a lot of time in your company, and I've always appreciated, admired you and the way you handle yourself. And so just want to say that to you. You'll say something tomorrow as well at the board meeting, but just grateful for.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being on this board and met a lot of people over the years. Come and gone, but
You made a lot of friends.
yes. But anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Jimmy. All right. Well, you just concluded your first. Wasn't too bad.
Bad at all.
All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'm ready to adjourn.
All right. Thank you. Second. All right. We're adjourned. We'll reconvene tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Yes, please. Can be with us.